Alrighty, friendos, welcome in. So in today's video, we are going to talk about all ghost hint abilities. So these are abilities that all the ghosts do. They'll tell you what kind of ghosts they are without needing any evidence whatsoever. This is the kind of knowledge you're going to need to do games on difficulties of Nightmare, Insanity, or even higher if you decide to play with no evidence and only decide ghosts based off their abilities, which you can do. You can actually figure out the ghost without any evidence. However, there are some ghosts with hidden abilities revolved around evidence, so we will be touching on those later. I'm going to break down the ghost abilities into categories. The first category being ghosts with abilities that have to do with speed. The second category being ghosts that have like visual appearances that tell you what they are. The third category is going to be ghosts that seem to have like a teleport or wandering ability. Maybe ghosts that all of a sudden on you or hunting on you and they're nowhere near their ghost room. The fourth category will include ghosts that have early hunting abilities. And the final category being other. These abilities don't really fall under any specific category. And the other category is going to be abilities that you may notice outside of a hunt or you can test for from the safety of a hiding spot. All right, so the first ghost we're going to talk about in this speedy category is the Raiju. So the Raiju's ability is that when it is around powered electrical equipment, so say your flashlight that is turned on or dots that are placed on the ground, it will speed up. Raijus also affect equipment from farther away, so you may notice your flashlight flicker from farther away when it's hunting if it's a Raiju. Raijus also have the ability to hunt you at 65% sanity if you are near active electronic equipment. Another small note about the Raiju that may not be super noticeable is that when they're hunting and say like you're looping the Raiju, if it is around electronic equipment, it will not gradually speed up with line of sight. So most ghosts, while they're chasing you, they'll gradually speed up while they have line of sight with you. Will Raiju when it is by electronic equipment. So say you're looping it with your flashlight, it's still going to be fast because it's near the flashlight, but it's not going to gradually speed up. So this isn't a small way to tell if it's a Raiju, but not a huge indicator. It's just something to keep in mind if you're looping a Raiju and you're like, wait, it's not getting any faster. All right, the next ghost we're going to talk about is the Moroi. The way the Moroi works is that the lower your sanity, the faster the Moroi is going to be during a hunt. The Moroi also has an ability that if you get a response on the spirit box or on the parabolic mic, it will curse you, which doubles your passive sanity drain. The only way to stop this sanity drain, this double sanity drain, is to take sanity pills. Also, smudging a Moroi during a hunt will blind the Moroi for 12 seconds instead of the typical 6 seconds for other ghosts. So if you're trying to test, like say you're going against you're playing on 0 evidence, and you can't tell if the ghost is a Moroi or a Thaye and you're at 0 sanity, you can smudge the ghost and see how long it ignores you for. If it ignores you for a ridiculously long time, it is probably a Moroi. A Moroi also speeds up with line of sight while it's chasing you, so if you're at 0% sanity and looping a Moroi, it could actually become the fastest ghost in the game. So if you're playing on professional or below, basically you have access to your sanity monitor and you get a response on the spirit box, you can then grab a candle, walk around the house, and see if your sanity continues to drain, because a candle prevents your sanity from draining. If your sanity continues to drain, then you probably are cursed by a Moroi. This is the first time we're going to talk about forced evidence. Forced evidence meaning that if you're playing on a difficulty with at least one piece of evidence, the Moroi has to have spirit box. If you're playing on insanity with only one piece of evidence, you get ghost writing, you could immediately rule out Moroi because it does not have spirit box. Similarly on Nightmare. If you're playing on Nightmare and you get the options of ghost writing and freezing temperatures, you can immediately roll off Moroi because you don't have spirit box. So a Moroi, if you have evidence, has to have spirit box. The next ghost we're going to talk about is the Revenant. Revenant is a super easy ghost to tell if it's a Revenant. When the Revenant is hunting, when it does not detect a player, if it's just walking around the house, it is going to be extremely slow. But the second that it detects a player or sees a player, it is going to instantly speed up and be very fast. And then if you are to break line of sight with the Revenant or smudge it, it will gradually go back down to its super slow speed. The next ghost we're going to talk about is the Hantu. The way the Hantu works is that it is fastest in cold temperatures and then slower in warm temperatures. Hantu also has freezing temperatures as forced evidence on Nightmare and Insanity. Hantus also don't speed up with line of sight, so if you're looping a Hantu, it will not gradually speed up if you're looping it. So a really good way to test for a Hantu is to go into a room that's relatively warm and loop it, and if it is not gradually speeding up, if it's just kind of staying slow and the room is warm, then it's most likely a Hantu. Alternatively, if you're just hiding in a closet and you hear it come out of its room and it's super fast, and then as soon as it leaves the room, it slows down, it could also be a Hantu. Sometimes you'll notice with Hantus is that as they're walking around the house, their speed is like super inconsistent because sometimes they're hitting like cold or warm patches throughout the house. Hantus also have an increased chance to turn off the breaker, but every ghost except for a Jinn is able to turn off the breaker, so it's not a guaranteed Hantu if the breaker gets turned off. But if you're going against a Hantu, you may notice that it turns off the breaker a lot more than any other ghost. The final unique Hantu ability is that when the breaker is off and the Hantu is hunting, you can actually see its breath. So if you want to make 100% sure that you're going against a Hantu, you could turn off the breaker and loop it and see if you can see its breath. The next ghost we're going to talk about is the Deogen, many people's favorite ghost. The Deogen is both one of the easiest ghosts to go against and also one of the hardest ghosts to go against. So the way Deogen works is that when it hunts, if it is nowhere near a player, it's going to be super, super fast. And the Deogen knows where every player is at all times. You cannot hide from this ghost. No matter how well you're hidden, if you have all your equipment off, etc., it will find you in your hiding spot, which makes it one of the most terrifying ghosts in the game. If the ghost you're going against could potentially be a Deogen, try not to hide until you know if it's a Deogen. But when the Deogen does find you, it slows down to a snail pace and is super easy to loop. So if you think you're going against a Deogen, try to stay near a spot where you can loop the ghost, like maybe you're on the couch or around the kitchen island. Also, Deogen has Spirit Box as forced evidence because it has a unique Deogen response. If you're talking to it on the Spirit Box, you have to be like right inside of the ghost to get the response, but it'll give you this sort of growl. This is a unique sound that only the Deogen can make on the Spirit Box. Whoa. Oh, it's a Dio. Oh, Lord. Wait, why didn't you find me the first hunt, though? Oh, God, how am I going to do this? Actually, I got this. This is easy. If we get cornered, we just smudge and go the other way. The next ghost we're going to talk about is the Jinn. The Jinn's ability focuses around the breaker. The Jinn is the only ghost that is not capable of turning off the breaker. So if you notice a ghost turn off the breaker, you can immediately roll off Jinn. But keep in mind, if you happen to turn on too many lights in the house, or if you have just enough lights to turn off the breaker, to pop the breaker, and then the ghost turns on a light, that will also trip the breaker. So it may look like it's not a Jinn, but there just may be too many lights on in the house, which is making the breaker turn off. The Jinn's main ability is that when the breaker is on, and the Jinn gets line of sight with you from kind of far away, it will speed up to catch up to you, and then it will go back down to normal speed. So the best way to test for a Jinn is to get like kind of down a narrow hallway or where the ghost can get a decent line of sight with you, and then pay attention to what its speed's like when it rounds the corner and sees you. Does it instantly get a little pep in its step and then slow down when it gets close to you? Then it's most likely a Jinn. And if you aren't sure, you can always turn off the breaker and do a reverse Jinn test and see if it does not speed up when it sees you, because a Jinn's ability stops if you turn off the breaker. The Jinn also has a chance of zapping your sanity by 25% if you're near it. And when it does this, it will leave an EMF 2 reading at the breaker. So if you don't want to get hunted by the Jinn, if you don't want to do an actual Jinn test, you could always try to leave an EMF reader at the breaker and see if you ever get a random EMF 2. Next ghosts we're going to talk about are the twins. The twins, when they are hunting, will either be slightly slower than normal speed or slightly faster. And they don't always send out a slow ghost, fast ghost, slow ghost, fast ghost. Sometimes you'll hear the slow twin 2, 3, 4 hunts in a row, and then they'll finally send out the fast twin. So if you hear the same speed 2 hunts in a row, don't rule out twins. It just could not be sending out the fast twin. And it's kind of hard to notice, but once you hear it, you know. So yeah, you're looking for a ghost that is either slightly slower or slightly faster than normal speed. Also, the twins are capable of doing 2 interactions at one time. They'll typically do these in like different rooms. Like maybe you hear 2 different objects get thrown in different rooms, or maybe like an object will get thrown and then a door far away will also get touched at the same time. The twins don't send out 2 ghosts at one time, by the way. I'm just throwing this out there just in case anyone isn't sure. You only have 1 ghost hunting at a time. It'll just either be slightly slower or slightly faster. Twins also may hunt from like a different room. So if the ghost hunts from like a different room than its ghost room and you notice its speed is a little funky, it could be twins. All right, the last ghost we're going to talk about on the speedy category is the Thaye. The Thaye is a super interesting ghost. So the Thaye is the only ghost in this game that ages. When you first start a contract, the Thaye is going to be young, meaning that it can hunt you at 75% sanity and will be very fast. And to age a Thaye, you just have to be near it. So if you're near the Thaye, every couple minutes it will age and gradually get slower and less aggressive. So if you think you could be going against the Thaye, you could try to hang around the ghost room for a few minutes, then listen to it when it hunts and see if it gets slower. Another characteristic of the Thaye is that it does not speed up with line of sight. So if you're looping a Thaye, pay attention to its speed. Is it getting faster and faster as you're looping it, or is it just staying the same speed? But probably the easiest way to test for a Thaye is just to maybe put some crucifixes in its room, or maybe take some sanity pills and try to age it and see if it progressively gets slower every time it hunts. The Thaye will also change its age on a Ouija board. So if you ask the ghost at the beginning of the trial what its age is, and then later on, if you ask it the same thing and it changes its age, it gets older, that is going to be a Thaye. The Thaye is the only one that can change its age on the Ouija board. Okay, now let's hop into the appearance category of ghosts. There are 3 ghosts that have significant appearance abilities during hunts. The first we're going to talk about is the Obkae. While the Obkae is hunting, every time it blinks, it has a 6.66% chance of changing its ghost model. So to test for an Obkae, you can loop it and pay attention to see if it ever shapeshifts to a different ghost model. The Obkae has fingerprints as forced evidence on Nightmare Insanity. So you have to have fingerprints, at least have fingerprints as evidence for an Obkae. The Obkae can also leave a 6-fingered fingerprint on a door, and the Obkae only has a 75% chance of leaving a fingerprint. So if the ghost touches a door and all of a sudden it's just not leaving fingerprints, this is probably an Obkae. Next ghost we're going to talk about in the appearance category is the Oni. The Oni is not capable of doing an airball ghost event, so if you ever get a ghost that does this ghost event, you can immediately roll out Oni. The Oni's other ability, it is super visible during hunts. So if you're looping a ghost and it is super visible, like sometimes they'll blink a couple times, but then they'll have like a couple second period where they are super visible, this is an Oni. All right, the next ghost we're going to talk about on the appearance list is the Phantom. The Phantom also classifies in the teleport wandering category, but we'll get to that ability in a second. The Phantom has a couple abilities. Its first ability being that if you take a picture of the Phantom during a ghost event, the Phantom will disappear and the ghost event will continue. So like the ghost will just disappear, but you'll still hear it like humming or singing or whatever ghost event it's doing. The Phantom also has an ability to wander. It'll like pick a player and like wander to them. So if you ever notice a ghost, all of a sudden it's not in its ghost room and it seems to be doing stuff near another player, it could also be a Phantom. Sometimes they'll even like wander to a player and then change their ghost room to that area. Another big tell that the ghost is a Phantom is that it has a very long blink while it's hunting. So if you're looping a ghost and there's like a couple second period where you just don't see it at all, it is most likely a Phantom. This is super noticeable. Like it can be sometimes super hard to track a Phantom while you're looping it. All right, now we're going to hop into the teleport wandering ability category. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Wraith. The Wraith's significant ability is that the Wraith isn't capable of stepping in salt piles at all. So to test for a Wraith, you can just fill its ghost room with salt, maybe even put up a motion sensor or two and see if the ghost ever activates the motion sensor and doesn't step in the salt. The Wraith also has a teleporting ability. It can teleport to a player anywhere on the map, obviously if you're inside the house. And when it does this, it will give you a random EMF 2. So another way to test for a Wraith is to go far away from the room, maybe with a crucifix, have your EMF reader, and if you ever get a random EMF 2, or the ghost all of a sudden is hunting on top of you and trying to use the crucifix, this could also mean that it's a Wraith. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Banshee. So the way that Banshee works is that it picks one player, and that is their favorite player. They will typically follow this person around, and they will only target this player during a hunt. In fact, the Banshee will only hunt based off this one player's sanity. So it completely ignores average sanity and just pays attention to its target's sanity. If for any reason that target steps outside the house, the Banshee will hunt normally, like it'll target everyone. Or if its initial target dies, it will then pick a new target. and will only focus that person. So if you're playing on multiplayer, test for a Banshee, you can just see if the ghost only goes for one person. Like the Banshee will only go for one person. It will completely ignore everybody else. So all 3 other players can just walk around during a hunt, can walk through the ghost, hang out with the ghost while it's hunting. It will not kill them. Now, if you're playing on single player, you can't do this, obviously. You have a couple options. You can either stare at the ghost room with a paramic and listen for a unique Banshee scream. The Banshee has a unique paramic response, but it's kind of rare, so sometimes it can take a while to get. Or you can go super far away from the ghost room and see if the ghost ever wanders over to you, follows you around, tries to hunt on you. This is also a characteristic of a Banshee. All right, so now we're going to hop into the early hunting abilities category. A ghost that we've already talked about that fall into this category include the Raiju that can hunt at 65% sanity if you're near active electronic equipment, and a early game Thaye that has not been aged that can hunt you at 75% sanity. Now here are all the other ghosts that can hunt you early. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Mare. The Mare can hunt you at 60% sanity if you are in the dark and 40% sanity if you're in the light. So if you're in the dark and you notice the ghost hunts you kind of early, it could potentially be a Mare. A Mare also has an ability to immediately turn off a light after you turn it on. Not to be confused with a ghost event. Like if you turn on a light and then the ghost is a ghost event, typically they turn off the light when they do a ghost event. So this is not the Mare ability. This is just a ghost event ability. But if you're going into the ghost room, you turn on the light, it immediately turns it off, most likely a Mare. They also say that a Mare is more likely to do light-breaking ghost events, but I wouldn't take this too much to heart. Like I've had several other ghosts do multiple light-breaking ghost events and not be a Mare. But if Mare is an option and it does a few light-breaking ghost events, definitely consider it. It could be a Mare. The Mare also will be a lot more wandery if the lights are on in its room. I've found that Mares typically will change their ghost room more often if the lights are on. So if you're having a hard time keeping track of this ghost and there's a lot of lights on, that could also mean that it's a Mare. Long story short, Mares hate the light. The next ghost we're going to talk about is the Demon. The Demon is a super aggressive ghost. It has the ability to hunt you at 70% sanity with a rare chance of hunting you at any sanity. So if you step inside the house at 100% sanity and the ghost hunts you, it's very likely a demon. Demons are also only affected by the smudge stick for 60 seconds after you smudge them. So if you smudge a demon and it's capable of hunting you, the smudge stick effect will only last for 60 seconds. So like the hunt will only be prevented for 60 seconds. The crucifix range for a demon is also increased to 5 meters. For other ghosts, it's a 3-meter range, meaning that the crucifix will cover a much larger area of the room if it's a demon. So if you think it might be a demon, you can kind of put the crucifixes in bad positions and see if it kind of uses crucifixes super easily. The demon can also hunt every 20 seconds instead of 25 seconds like every other ghost. Next ghost we're going to talk about is the Yokai. So the Yokai, everyone jokes about, is the dumb ghost, meaning that it has a much harder time of detecting your voice and equipment during hunts. So to test for a Yokai, you could sit in a room near the ghost room with your flashlight on, obviously with a smudge stick, and see if the ghost finds you. If it just walks by your room, your flashlight's flickering, you're yelling at it, and it doesn't find you, it's most likely a Yokai. It cannot detect your voice or your equipment from farther than 2.5 meters away. It can also hunt you at 80% sanity if there are players nearby talking to it. Next ghost we're going to talk about is an Onryo. So the Onryo hates candles. It cannot hunt if it is near a lit candle. So the candle on an Onryo actually has a 4-meter range. So you know how the crucifix has like a 3-meter range on ghosts? The candle for an Onryo has a 4-meter range. So to test for an Onryo, you want to put crucifixes in the room and also put lit candles on the crucifix. And if it refuses to use any of the crucifixes before blowing out a candle, then it's most likely an Onryo. After blowing out 3 candles, the Onryo can also hunt at any sanity. But as long as you have crucifixes nearby, you should be fine. So yeah, to test for an Onryo, set up a bunch of candles and crucifixes in the room and see if it just refuses to hunt. If it's blowing out a bunch of candles, oftentimes Onryos will also blow out the lighter in your hand. Basically, you're looking for a ghost that just hates candles, keeps blowing them out. All right, now we're going to hop into the other category of ghosts that don't really have a significant speed or visual appearance during hunts. The first ghost we're going to talk about is a spirit. The spirit is super easy. To test for a spirit, you can smudge it either outside of hunt or during a hunt. Keeping in mind the ghost, your sanity has to be low enough for the ghost to be able to hunt you. But you can smudge a ghost, see how long it takes it to hunt you after you smudge it. And if the ghost takes 3 minutes to hunt after you smudge it, then it's going to be a spirit. A spirit has to wait 3 minutes to hunt you after you've smudged it. And you want to set your timer right after your smudge finishes burning. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a poltergeist. So the poltergeist likes to throw a lot of objects. The best way to test for a poltergeist is to put a pile of items in its ghost room, and the poltergeist has an ability of exploding a pile of items. Also, every time a poltergeist throws an item, it drains your sanity by 2%. Another fun way to test for a poltergeist is to loop the ghost while it's hunting and see how it interacts with objects. When a poltergeist is hunting, it has a 100% chance of throwing an item every half second. So when you're going against a poltergeist, you can't miss it. Like when you're looping it, it's going to be throwing items like crazy. It's super fun. Next ghost we're going to talk about is the Myling. The Myling is a very quiet ghost. So while the ghost is hunting, you can only hear it up to 12 meters away. Whereas every other ghost, you can hear 20 meters away. So to test for a Myling, you can sit in a closet or a hiding spot with your flashlight on the ground at your feet. This will not attract the ghost, by the way. Flashlights turned on the ground do not attract the ghost. But what you want to pay attention to is when the footsteps stop. So a Myling, you will immediately stop hearing footsteps as soon as your flashlight stops flickering. With every other ghost, you'll be able to hear the footsteps after your flashlight stops flickering. So yeah, to test for a Myling, just pay attention to your flashlight. Do the footsteps stop as soon as your flashlight stops flickering? Mylings are also way more talkative on the paramic. So if you're going against a ghost and it's just talking to you like crazy on the paramic, it could be a Myling. Sometimes Mylings and Raijus get a little bit confusing because, like I mentioned earlier, Raijus affect your equipment from farther away. So if Myling and Raiju are both options for ghosts, maybe double check to see if it's getting speedy around electronic equipment, because sometimes a Raiju can seem like a Myling because it's affecting the equipment from farther away. Next ghost we're going to talk about is a Yurei. So the Yurei's main ability is that it is capable of draining a player's sanity by 15% if someone is nearby the ghost. And when it does this, it will fully slam a door. Like the door has to be open all the way and then it will fully slam it. Another unique characteristic of a Yurei is that it can do like a double door touch. This is sometimes hard to hear, but it'll literally be like 2 touches right back to back. Only Yureis can do this. Yureis also get trapped in their room for a period of time after you smudge them. So if you smudge a ghost that was initially kind of wandering around and all of a sudden it just seems like it's not leaving its room, this could also mean that's a Yurei. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Shade. So the Shade is a very shy ghost. It is incapable of hunting if it is in the same room as you. Shades also typically only do like airball ghost events or not fully visible ghost events, if it's going to do ghost events at all. So if you're going against a ghost and it doesn't seem to be hunting if you're in the same room as it, or it's just like super inactive, it is most likely a Shade. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Goryo. So the Goryo is probably one of the most boring ghosts as far as abilities go. Its main ability is that it has to do with evidence. So with the Goryo, it has forced evidence of dots, and you can only see these dots through a video camera if you're not in the same room as it. The Goryo is also the only ghost that will never change its favorite room. And the last ghost we're going to talk about is the Mimic. The Mimic is such a fun ghost. So the Mimic is basically what its name sounds like. It can mimic any ghost ability in the game. Like this ghost could pretend to be a super young Thaye and hunt you at 75% sanity and be super fast. It could go from mimicking a Deogen during a hunt, and then a few hunts later, it could go and be a Revenant. You could even get a Banshee scream on the paramic if you're going against a Mimic and it happens to be mimicking Banshee. But the easiest way to tell for a Mimic is that a Mimic has ghost orbs as forced evidence. So even if you're playing on 0 evidence, this ghost will have orbs. Alternatively, if you're playing on professional difficulty, Mimics will have fingerprints, freezing, spirit box, and ghost orbs. If you're playing on Nightmare, it'll have 2 of those evidence plus ghost orbs. And if you're playing on Insanity, it will have 1 of its evidence plus ghost orbs. So in my experience, if I ever get like fingerprints, or if I'm playing on Nightmare difficulty, if I ever get fingerprints in freezing or fingerprints in spirit box, I always check for ghost orbs because it could be a Mimic. Alternatively, if you're playing on Nightmare and you get something like fingerprints and ghost orbs or fingerprints in spirit box, you also want to check for another piece of Mimic evidence to make sure that it's not a Mimic. Really, anytime I get ghost orbs and 1 piece of evidence that a Mimic has, I always check for the other Mimic evidence just to cross off Mimic, because they could be sneaky. And that's all I got for you guys. Those are all the ghost abilities. I know it can seem super overwhelming, like there's a lot to remember and it's a lot to process, but I promise you, the more you play and the more you see these abilities firsthand, the easier it gets. I also have in the description of this video a Google Doc sheet with all these abilities listed down in text if you would rather read them. So definitely open up that link, maybe bookmark it and reference that if you're ever in a game and you can't figure out what the ghost is. But otherwise, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment down below if you have any questions. If not, comment down below what your favorite ghost ability is. Mine personally, it's tied between the Obkae and Mimic. I love them both so much. But yeah, if you liked the video, drop it a like. Comment down below. All of this helps with the algorithm so much. Otherwise, good luck ghost hunting, and I will see you in the next one.